question. Raymond was what did you want to be?
Answer him, Raymond. Jesus.
Get up, get up, get up, son. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Come on, son. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Come on, son. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Come on, son.
Sometimes I don't know if you can hear me over the music because I can hear it in my headphones, but I don't know. Anyway, so I'll turn it down a little bit. Tonight, the last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get to just a debate. I like doing these little, watching people debate or talk to each other, and I get to kind of interject in things or maybe get a better perspective on like where some people are coming from. I like politics. I like social shit. I like music. I like art. Like, I think it's all like, you know, Russell Brand is an artist, but he used to be an actor. He's an actor. He's now doing a lot of like spiritual stuff, and he gets real deep and intellectual, but he's not as so anyway, this debate right here is Russell Brand. Sorry, let me introduce the whole thing. This is Russell Brand. This is Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a doctor, a clinical psychologist, a speaker. He's got a reputation, not by his own, to be like a right speaker for what they say. And Russell Brand is more of a left liberal, more social, you know, whereas Jordan Peterson is take responsibility for yourself and you'll move forward. And Russell Brand's all like, you know, there's things in society that we can't help, like drug addiction and something that he's familiar with and he got over. It's things that we trauma and this and that. And Jordan Peterson's like, fuck that, like that doesn't matter. And so that's the basis of those two minds, you know. And maybe I'm not pinpointing them right, but this is what I know of them. So what I'm going to do is just watch this between these two minds and check it out. It's 11 minutes long. I'm trying not to interrupt too much, but you know, I do want to. The point of watching this is because I want to. If I was there in this conversation, like a third party, I would interject in these moments and I would ask these same questions. So let's go ahead and get to this video. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Do your thing. Shout out to Delta 8 products by Good Karma. GoodKarma.life. Go to GoodKarma.life. Check out these gummies. They got the worms. They got the CBD products. We got these disposables, and you can get disposables in different strains, like a little sativa, a little hybrid, indica. They're really cool. Now let's get to this video. Check it out. Thanks for watching.
You're moving through life and you have a plan or a dream and it shatters. You know, someone dies or a relationship breaks apart or you have a terrible upset in your career or you become ill in some unexpected way. Then everything around you falls apart and you plunge into a chaotic underworld.
The belly of the whale.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes, exactly that. And then maybe you stay there because it isn't necessarily the case that people get out. You know, people die. People are in despair permanently. But frequently, something tragic and terrible befalls you, and you fall apart, and you learn something profound as a consequence, and you put yourself back together. And when you come back out, you're more than you were when you went in. And that's happening at a small scale. Every time you learn something, you know, if you ever really learn something, it's usually painful. It usually means that you have to recognize that you're wrong in some important way. You have to let that part of you that's wrong die. And then you have to let a new part of you. Okay, so the self, imagine that you undergo a series of transformations in your life. There are collapses into the chaotic underworld and then mini resurrections. That happens continually. And that's what molds your character.
Yes.
The self is this thing that manages the transformations that manages all those transformations. So you could say, here's another way of thinking about it. You could identify with what you understand. That's what ideologues do. You could identify with what you don't understand, and that's what sort of seekers after truth identify with. Or you could identify with the process of moving between those states. You know, sometimes you know what you're doing, you know where you are, you're in control.
Yeah.
And you can become arrogant and identify with that and then become too static about it, right? Or you can be in despair and everything is chaotic and you can identify with that, in which case you're nihilistic. Or you can view yourself as the thing that moves across the transformations. And that's the right way to conceptualize yourself, is you're the thing that maintains constancy across transformations.
One imagines that your experience with the controversies around the linguistics and legislation in Canada must have felt...
Russell Brand trips me out, man, because he's so aware of what he's saying. Like Jordan Peterson is one, but Jordan Peterson is more versed in and disciplined in. He repeats things that he knows are true. Like he's learned in books, he's learned through practical experience, through experiments, and he repeats it like he specifically knows that he's talking about, and I know for sure. Russell Brand frequently talks like, I might not know what I'm talking about, but I want to make sure that I get to the point and use the proper words to get to whatever question I'm trying to ask, or whatever statement he's trying to make. But he's very careful with his words, especially, I guess, nowadays with the YouTube canceling and things like that. But you always got to be careful with your words, man. I don't think you should ever be like just flippant, unless it's an open setting where they're like, yeah, we want to speak openly and we're going to just talk and no judgment. There's going to be a little judgment because sometimes you'll say stuff you're not really aware that could be problematic, or maybe you'll say something that you have no idea I don't know, but it's not a big deal. But anyway, so he's very careful with his words, the way he talks, and Jordan Peterson seems to be very straightforward. Like, I know what I'm saying.
Felt like one of those plunges into the depths on some level, would you say? Did you feel a sense of personal tragedy and fear and a concern about consequence, or that there may be no way back, that it could represent a kind of death? Or did it indeed represent a kind of death for you, for one for which you are subsequently grateful?
Well, I would say for the first 4 months,
Hold on.
One of those, the actions that your
self is you're the thing that transformation.
experience that your... One imagines that your experience with the controversies around the linguistics and legislation in Canada must have felt like one of those plunges into the depths on some level, would you say? Did you feel a sense of personal tragedy and fear and a concern about consequence, or that there may be no way back, that it could represent a kind of death? Or did it indeed represent a kind of death for you, for one for which you are subsequently grateful?
Well, I would say for the first 4 months, when the political scandal broke, it was very unsettling for a variety of reasons. The first was...
Okay, so Jordan Peterson caught some hell for saying certain things, and I think regarding whatever his thoughts are on expertise or whatever. And he's talking about in Canada, I guess he's from Canada, and did you experience this falling into the depths of hell that Jordan Peterson is talking about, and coming out of it with some kind of lesson, and he's asking about his experience and taking his own advice. How did he go through that?
Was that my occupation as a clinical psychologist and as a professor was definitely in doubt. I mean, the university sent me 2 warning letters, and that's a standard HR procedure. Usually you get 3, right? The 3rd warning is stop, or your consequences won't be good.
Yeah, I've been fired before. It's usually 1, 2, 3. And if you get 1 or 2 in a row, they're almost at the 3rd.
Good. If you work in human resources, you have to, especially if you're going to go after someone with tenure, you have to document their misbehavior. You have to provide them with warnings. You have to tell them how they could get back on the right track. And then...
Same with a job. You got to document it. But usually they document it so they can fire you.
If you have documented refusal to comply with the warnings, then they have grounds for dismissal.
Right.
So we're very worried about
You were
that.
close.
If you get in trouble for the same thing more than once, twice, 3 times, you're out. And sometimes you've been doing that for a while, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now they got to document it.
You were close to to some kind of personal or professional annihilation, or certainly damage. Now, for people, just in case, on the off chance that there are people that are unaware of the details, I'll say it as I understand it, and then you can tell me how I've got it wrong. The government changed the law saying that there are neutral nouns that mandatorily would be applied to people identified as transgender. You said that is an imposition on freedom of speech, whilst I would make a decision whether or not I would. If I was meeting a transgender person, I would talk to them how they wanted to be talked to. Right. The fact that you're making it law is an impediment on the freedom of speech, and then it kicked off.
Yeah, that's a good summary of it. Yeah, I would say. I mean,
I'm not aware of this law Like, how they gonna enforce it? Like, are they gonna be around somebody? I think it has to do with like kind of harassment or violence towards somebody. Yeah, but I'm not really sure about it. So and yeah, I believe myself that you should be able to be amongst yourselves. If we're gonna talk about pronouns, like if you ask me to call you a certain pronoun and I refuse, then we just don't interact or something. Or if you ask me and I do and I say, okay, yeah, if you want to identify as that, it's just there has to be some kind of human to human agreement. But when the line gets too much for one individual to handle and somebody's acting violent towards another, or I mean both ways. If someone says I want you to call me this and then they get violent for not, then it's a law thing, I guess.
My sense, there were two things I objected to. One was that the government, for the first time in the history of Canada, and really in a move that was unprecedented in English common law, under English common law, actually mandated the content of voluntary speech. And I thought, I don't care what your excuse is for doing that. That's no-go zone as far as I'm concerned. That's not happening.
Even though, right, this is what it seems to me like, sort of, help me to understand this, right? Because what I'm always interested in, I think, is power and where power is.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, I subsequently looked at what your views are towards, like, sort of post-structuralist and the alt-left. And, like, a lot of things I think, yeah, you're right. That you know, I agree with that. But what the reason I think that the sort of the controversy had fuel on both sides, the reason it had an engine on the other side, is because it seems that, and indeed having watched other interviews and the objections that other interviewers have presented to you, it seems to me that a transgender person is in a position of vulnerability. But you're saying this is not about transgender. This is about language and it's about oppression. That's what you're saying.
Well, that was my claim, is that this wasn't about transgenderism at all. And I would
about
say,
which you've got no strong view, I'm guessing, or...
I don't...
That was a setup right there. He's like, oh, but you don't have any strong view on that, do you? And here comes Jordan Peterson.
I don't have the sort of strong view that I would think I was sufficiently qualified to make political statements about.
Yeah, like
It's very
Chappelle
complicated.
goes,
I mean,
I don't understand it, but it's not my...
Well, I basically look at the research, you know, and I mean, the research for transgendered kids is quite clear, is that most of them desist by the time they're 18.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm basically guided by...
Where's
because
this
I'm
in
a
like
social
Scandinavia
scientist.
where they check that stuff out?
Yeah,
or-
yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, people have criticized
Wow.
that research, like
He
all
sounded
research,
like he was
but it's the
being
best.
funny about it, but in actuality, like, they really do study this stuff. So maybe we're a little behind on studies. But either way, like, wow. This is an interesting topic because
Research that's been done on the topic, but
my daughter has actually come home and told me that there's like a kid in her school that I guess is exploring this lifestyle or this whatever way of defining themselves. I don't know. It's there. It's out there.
well, the other problem was with the legislation was that I felt that it was an attempt by the radical left to gain the linguistic territory and to define the terms of the debate. You know, and I thought that was very dangerous. So I was objecting to that as well.
I feel you. Now, the thing that I'm interested in here, Jordan, is I don't feel like the radical left is a very powerful group. Am I being naive here? I mean, possibly in the world of academia, particularly, like, I feel like they are sort of representative of a coalition built around identity politics, issues that would seem particularly important to people. Like, my general view is if you identify something, cool, no problem, it's none of my business. That's basically my opinion. I'll call you what you want me to call you. I'm happy that you're speaking to me. But do you see a sort of the sort of extreme left or as a powerful organisation, like,
Well,
you know,
certainly in the universities.
so what they can get what done? They could, for example, they could get that legislation passed.
Yes, that.
They-
Well, and I think the situation is different in the U.S. than it is in other countries. I think the political situation in the U.S. is actually more balanced than it is in most Western countries, because I would say the left, the radical left, has a pretty decent hold on a number of institutions, and first and foremost of those would be the universities. But then the conservatives, you know, aren't without power in the United States, because they occupy most of the elected positions now. But it's not the case in Canada.
You don't want to be identified with any of those groups, am I right? Like, you wouldn't say that you're a person that's on the right or the left or conservative, or really, I noticed you didn't say
No,
whether
well,
or not you believed in God.
Well, my political views are complicated because I'm temperamentally liberal, because I'm high in openness, which is a creativity dimension, and people who are high in openness tend to be liberal because they like free-flowing information, and they like, what would you say, fluid boundaries, because information can move back and forth across the boundaries.
How amazing.
So
So you
temperamentally, I'm
reject,
like that.
ideologically, you reject these taxonomies and you identify basically on the basis of research, like empiricism in a sense. You could say, like, I'm an open-minded type of person. This
Yeah.
language is clinical psychology. So your faith is clinical psychology.
It's
and
research. Well, I've done a fair bit of research in my lab on
Yes.
the temperamental predictors of political predisposition, and we can predict what parties people are going to align themselves with by studying their personality.
Right.
So liberal types, liberal left types are high in a trait called openness, and open people, you're a very open person. And you can tell because you think laterally, you have an idea, and then it reminds you of a whole bunch of other ideas. And so you'll move laterally across ideas. And a more conservative person, they'll stay within the category. And so your conversational style is marked by divergences. And that's actually called divergent thinking. It's a hallmark of creativity. Well, it's good if you want to be creative. The problem with there's a price for everything. The price for creativity is that
I understand the balance, and that's why like certain people make good business partners, because one person can be creative and push the brand or whatever, another person can be the business mind and just like da-da-da. When we can find the balance in ourselves, I guess, but certain people tend to be more this than that, and we can't hate each other for that. We just have to recognize our importance and be that when that is necessary, but then be able to be this when this is necessary, or be able to be like, oh no, he's pretty good at this type of open creative thinking and whatnot, and some of that needs to be in our not open thinking, but like we have to think that way in some of our way we structure society. You can't just be rigid in like it's gonna be like this and it's gonna be like that, because you're gonna have sects of the population that aren't like that, and you gotta be accepting of that if you're gonna have a free society. You can't be rigid in like we're not gonna allow this and we're not gonna allow that. Like, and if the fringe or the people in the middle tend to like kind of get, sometimes they go here, sometimes they go here, so what? Let it be. That's natural. To me, that's natural, but people tend to think that there's influence coming from other human beings, and is that, are we going to restrict that? Because if we want freedom, then we have to have freedom for people to express and go through their own stuff and be manipulated and be motivated, and your best thing is to try your best to not be, and raise your kids to not be, and help them go in the direction that they want to go, as well as keeping their feet on the ground, right? Yeah.
it's hard to catalyze an identity because you're interested in everything, your ideas. And so you'll move laterally across ideas. And a more conservative person, they'll stay within the category. And so your conversational style is marked by divergences. And that's actually called divergent thinking. It's a hallmark of creativity. Good? Well, it's good if you want to be creative. The problem with there's a price for everything, hey? The price for creativity is that it's hard to catalyze an identity because you're interested in everything. That's the first thing. And your interest will flit from one thing to another. So one of the problems that creative people have, well, they have two. One is they have a hard time establishing an identity. And the second is they have a hard time monetizing their creativity. Yeah. It's very difficult to be a creative person and make money. Yeah. You can make money for other people, but usually you're dead by then, so it's not very helpful for you.
Jordan, both of those problems...
that kind of explains how I'm able to promote other people, and I can promote myself in a way, but I tend to just kind of free flow, like be me. My best creative self is just being me, right? Where I don't give any much thought. I don't have to write it down, be like, okay, make sure you do this at this time, make sure you do this at this. I can be like that in a structure sometimes, but most of the time, like I'm so much more comfortable just being me and being what you say. When I start thinking too much, I really start stumbling and fumbling, and I'll put that on. I'll be like, hey, can you handle this for me? Like, oh, that's cool. That really hit home for me.
As a result of external structures, the imposition of external structures on the individual, i.e. make money, that's a problem of capitalism, and commerce more broadly, and the other one of identity, similarly. So is there a sort of a peculiar contradiction in around identity, in that, like, it seems to me on one level that you reject taxonomy. So you're saying that these systems, e.g. if you say women are being paid less money, your argument would be, well, hold on a minute, there are other factors other than gender here. I don't agree with the data.
Argument. It's a funny thing because the intersectional feminists always claim that you should take other factors into account, right? Woman, man isn't enough. White, black isn't enough. Well, I say, well, there's a pay gap between men and women, but it's not only due to gender. It's due to all sorts of things, and you have to take them into account. So it's really an intersectional argument. So it's quite funny that I get hell for it.
It's an intersectional argument. So do you feel then, because what I sense is happening, like trying to understand where like our worldviews would align and where potentially there would be opposition between you and I. Well, I'm trying, because it seems to me, looking at your work, it's like, oh, I don't agree with the way that this information is being compiled. I don't agree with the assumptions that you're trying to saddle that piece of data with. It seems to me that it's about critical thinking, a very post-structuralist idea, you know. But also, what I have noticed is that many of your theories seem to be subsequently alloyed to some unpleasant ideas around sort of tradition, conservatism, oppression, even.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Because, like, you know, like it would be well easy for you to, like, I think you have said, I don't care about whether people are transgender or not. I just don't want no oppressive laws around language. But it would also be easy for you to say, I don't think there's any, you know, I've heard you say on the news, fairness. But it does seem that there is some mischief somehow in you around the issues such as gender inequality.
Well, there's probably lots of mischief in me around all sorts of things. But I think that mostly I look at the political landscape from the perspective of an informed, biologically oriented social scientist. And so when people lay out their particular theories, they don't sound updated to me.
Yeah, they don't sound updated. That's funny because he tends to hold some very strong, like, older views, in my opinion. Like, you know, very, very strict, very, like, you got to do this to get this, and then this, that, and you know, I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard, but, like, work hard, and you do this, and then everything will come in this way. That's not updated. I think updated is more like, well, progressive stuff. Like, it doesn't mean you have to change your way of doing things. If you're generally a conservative person, then be that. What we're saying, what people are saying, is that people are free to be who they want to be, as long as they're not affecting anyone else. And that's a more, you know, they didn't get into any kind of politics, so it's not like a liberal conservative argument or a political party. It's just simply allow people to be who they. It's not even allow, because it's not up to you. Accepting people for who they are. If they are a person that's not sure about themselves, or if they are sure about themselves and they're sure that they are this or they're not that, what is it any of your business to judge that, unless there's some effect on you, unless it's having an effect on you? And I think people make it having an effect on them. Like, you see like a transgender person and they got their kids with them, like, oh, don't look at that because you might get an idea. If a kid is who they're gonna be, then they can't be influenced in any way unless they're interested. That's how I'm looking at it. But then, you know, but that's not always true. I know some people can be influenced and things like that, but if you want to live in a free society and have the liberty to be who you are, then we have to accept others for who they are, and we don't have to call them what they want you to call them. But then you're not going to get along with people, and why do you want that? Like, it's really not a big deal to me. But I understand when he's talking about writing laws around it. I'm not for that either. I'm definitely for letting people be who they are, but we're not going to, like, mandate and say you have to do this in this situation. But how are they going to police that anyway? I think they said it was in the courts, like when they're in court, and the how they refer to people in court. And look, if they're going to be lawyers are very particular about linguistics, right? Language, and the way we write laws and the way we have to do with the words. So if someone's going to go by this, then we have to refer to them as that, or else the laws don't apply. Maybe that's it. I don't know. It's a good discussion. I don't know who that is. Is that Jordan Peterson? Like a young Jordan Peterson? That's crazy. So anyway, I think there's the rest of the debate.
That there is some mischief somehow in.
They don't sound outdated to me.
Yeah, I guess there's a whole the whole video. If you check out Russell Brand's podcast, it's called Under the Skin. You can look up more of this between Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand. I look up Jordan Peterson sometimes. I'll check out Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens. I like to listen to people on the other side, Charlie, whatever that guy's name is, on not necessarily the other side, but I like to listen to people of all spectrums and what they're saying. You got some liberals, you got conservatives, you got some progressives, you got some libertarians, you got all sorts of people, and I want to get all different perspectives and try to understand where everybody's coming from, you know. I think we all got to meet somewhere. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to try to catch on another couple interviews possibly. Let me get this music going. Turn this down. Yeah, appreciate you watching me, guys. Thanks. Trail 7 Reactions. Peace.
Stop for a second.
Hey, what are we doing?
Turn around.
What are we doing?
Homework assignment.
What kind of homework assignment? Hey, is that a gun? Please.
On a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to 0.
Would you rather be dead? No. Would you rather die here? No. What did you want to be, Raymond K. Hessel?
The question, Raymond, was what did you want to be?
Answer him, Raymond. Jesus.
Get up, come on, son, get up.